Have you ever done just one thing? Because you always do so much, and it seems like even that space is all
Yeah,
different types of
it doesn't
things.
seem like my husband and I allow ourselves just to do one thing. Yeah, we just got back from FrankenCon over the weekend in Knoxville, and it was great. It was just
Sweet.
really, it's the first time I've done a convention in a long, long time, and I definitely want to do more of them for sure. For
Yeah,
something
because
like
so
this.
many people like, and it's so true. And I'm not just pulling your leg and saying this because I'm talking to you, but like you and Joe Bob with like Monster Vision, even on like a smaller scale of like dinner and a movie. Like when it, nowadays you don't have that, like no matter what, I'm watching this movie, unless you rented a movie as a, like when I was a kid, you rent a movie and like they were expensive, so like no matter what, my dad was like, you're watching this movie. Same thing with
Right.
watching like you on Friday and Saturday nights. It's like even this movie stinks, every you have these skits or you're in these unique
Yeah.
scenarios in between. It was definitely a lot of fun and definitely fueled loving films for not just me, a whole generation.
I heard that from so many people over the weekend, along with people that were probably in their early 40s who had children and had turned their children onto the clips. So now, or clips, or even Joe Bob shows those. So now there's like this really young generation that's like, why don't we have this on our TV? Why do we have to, But Joe Bob, thank you for him, keeping that genre alive. But then I definitely think there's a lot of people that are making horror films and lower budget films. And I definitely think there is a place for hosted movies again. And back in our
No,
day, it was
totally.
about making the people watch the commercials that would pay the bills for USA Network. And so it was like, you
Yeah.
know, we would come on at the commercial break. So that's that whatever they cut out of the film for either nudity or time was how long we ended up being on air. So, the sketches. So, yeah, I think it was a very innocent time. I think it was a fun time, and the compliments I got over at the convention were like just wonderful. Like so many people that grew up with me and Elvira and all these different hosts, and they really miss it, and they miss the innocence of that age, and like you said, the fun. There's just pure fun, just like take your mind off of everything. You've been working all weekend, and you can watch these films and watch these silly sketches, which some of them are really, really great sketches, and some of the themes were really good. I mean, we did like 450 shows, I think, something like that, at least in my time.
Yeah. No, and it was just like you said, it was like a good way to just relax. Like we did it like at my age, it was sleepovers. Like that's
Right.
what we'd watch. It'd be like that's what we'd
Yeah.
do. You know, we'd stay up all night watching those movies. But to like your beginnings, and it's so true. Like you just mentioned, like you really don't know unless you. And now with social media, you can interact with people. People can comment or. But before that, unless you ran into somebody, which I'm sure you ran into fans of USA Up All Night when it was airing, but it's still hard. It's like people that make a movie. You don't know if people really enjoy the movie. Maybe some people walk up to you. It's not like doing a play or like when you're doing
Right.
stand
You
up.
don't get the instant gratification. Yeah, I get.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's funny because we aired a lot of films that were well-known films, but then and then even films that were more mainstream, like 16 Candles. I don't know how that fit
Yeah.
into the lineup, but it did. It was all USA Network's rather film library that they ran and reran. So they owned those films or had the rights to so many airings of them. But yeah, you didn't know. But then there were some that you knew by the ratings of the weekend. It's funny. USA Network never um, would say, "Oh, it's you and Gilbert Godfrey that are creating the ratings." It's the movie that's creating the ratings. So perhaps that's true. Perhaps it's a combination of both. But there was definitely, certain movies, like someone just wrote Friday the 13th, marathons that or Toxic
Oh yeah.
Avenger, that would definitely, people got to know and love through USA Network and were turned on to those films through USA Network. So, yeah,
No,
it's a
totally.
shame,
And
but I
definitely,
think this one
definitely
was
Friday the 13th. Because even though it was cut, I think it was. I think it was when you did like Jason Takes Manhattan, and you had the guy in like basically the non-Jason mask. It was like that white, and it was just funny. Like he was just there, and you were like having a full conversation, and it
oh
seemed
yeah,
like the way he was just there. It was so funny.
That's so funny. Yeah, it's so funny because a guy at this last convention came up to me with two Jason masks and had me sign them, and I'm like, "These are so much fun to sign." He got like these really cheap ones. Like, I think I'm going to get some, and just they're just generic kind of, and really flimsy, but they were so easy to sign. Because I definitely
Yeah.
think, people thought of me with Toxie, and they thought of me with Jason and Pinhead. There are certain characters, and of course the Scream Queens, like Linnea Quigley and all those girls. Michelle Bauer. They were always on the show. So, but we are rebooting Up All Night. We hope to have one up mid-June to end of June, and then we'll try to crank them out as often as we can, initially on YouTube. And then when we feel like we get that right pilot, then we'll shop that pilot around to Shudder and Screenbox and whoever else will. You can come in. It's a podcast. My husband's bringing me a fresco. Thank you. See
Oh,
you.
nice.
Yeah, you,
That's so cool. I was reading about how you guys met, like reconnected on
yes.
classmates.com. That's
We did. It was like
what?
ridiculous. It was like I was dating all these moguls in LA and never dreaming of coming back or going anywhere else but LA. And then he reaches out to me through classmates.com, divorced over a year. And I just wanted to mess with him because I knew he had been watching me on TV and I was looking all fine and newly fired from not fired, but the show they pulled off the air. And he caught me second time around and we eloped in 15 days. So
That's
it's,
cool. He's like
yeah.
watching WrestleMania with his friends and sees you on WrestleMania.
No, he was watching Up All Night with his son after his wife went to sleep. So, but he didn't cheat. And his ex left him. They
Yeah.
just grew apart, so he was good, but living in Louisiana. So we ended up starting a business together. We lived in Louisiana for a minute and Texas for a minute and then LA for a couple of years. Then we moved to Florida for Home Shopping Network because we started an intimate apparel business, never knowing that it would be the success that it became. So we've been here 20 something years now. So Florida's become home,
Wow.
but I still miss LA.
I'm sure. Sure. So now growing up, so did you grow up in New Orleans or a suburb of New Orleans?
Grew up in New Orleans proper. Well, it was considered the suburbs, about by the lakefront, but it's New Orleans. And Van, my husband, also grew up out there. So we went to the same junior high and then high school together. So we were truly junior high and high school sweethearts, which is just insane.
Yeah.
So I mean, I
And how
dated
did it
all.
all begin? Like your journey? How did your journey into,
I
was it like
started off
stand
as a
up modeling? Like what was that first thing that you
all the way in
dipped
New
your toes
Orleans
into?
dancing school, and that led to pageants. That led to the talent competition and pageants. That led to me then joining theater in school and in college. And I wanted a career in broadcasting, but I thought more like newscaster because I didn't think I was going to be leaving New Orleans. But then uh, I had this um, opportunity to go to LA when I was Miss Louisiana, and I ended up through the opportunity auditioning for a Happy Days when I was 19, and that and I ended up reading with Henry Winkler and with Donnie, not Donnie Most, Corbin, no, Anson Williams. Answer, no, the big one, the big the big director. What's his name? Penny Marshall or Gary Marshall? No,
Oh,
not Gary.
Marshall?
No,
Oh,
Opie. What's Ron Howard?
Ron Howard?
So I ended up reading at 19 years old out of nowhere with Ron Howard and Henry Winkler for part that I happened onto this situation through the people that were um, shooting this commercial for a jewelry line, and they were involved with casting. The wife was involved with casting Happy Days, and she said, "You're so pretty. You should come in and read this week." It was just this weird moment, and it would have been perfect if I would have gotten the role. I didn't get the role, but that did it. That taste of being on Paramount set in that casting director's office, reading with the two stars, which I don't think in all my years that I was there, in 26 years, I ever read with the stars of a show for an audition. So, and I mean, I did many shows. I read with the casting director and you got
Yeah.
cast, the director and you got cast, but never at the stars. But that was it. That was that. I was getting now. My parents were like, "You're finishing college," and I was just a sophomore, I think, and so I had to finish school. And then I ended up running for office in New Orleans. So it took me a little, a few more years to get back out there. And it's funny, that was Happy Days last year, I think the last season, but I ended up doing 3 Happy Days episodes. So that was one of the first things I ever did, which was really cool. That it was like full circle when I first got there.
Yeah.
So
Did you still keep contact with that same lady? So when you went back
I
out there, when you were
did,
done?
I did. And then, I started, I had well past my pageant days, not so much in age, but in like I had one Miss Louisiana, like several different Miss Louisiana titles. But when I got to LA, I didn't know what else to do to meet people because I didn't have any family there except enter pageants. I mean, I was looking for ways, how do you meet people? Yes, I got into some acting classes, but then I entered pageants and won Miss Hollywood and Miss Los Angeles Press Club. And that was like a big deal back then because that got me in with agents. And then one thing would lead to another. And I was pretty good at networking. I was shy, but I pushed myself to do this stuff.
You were
And
shy?
yeah, I'm very shy one-on-one. It's very
Yeah.
funny. I can push myself to be in front of thousands of people, but if I'm at a party, I'm not going to be the one going up to people at the party. I'm going to sit in the corner and let them come to me. I'm not. A lot of actors are like that. So, but but part of the reason I got into comedy was to push myself out of that shyness, or and being funny, and it was part of my defense mechanism over guys being too kissy smoochy back in the day. So prior to the Me
Where
Too
did
movement,
where'd you start going up in LA?
where did I start going? Oh, when I first started
Like
doing
stand
stand up.
up wise.
Oh, I had started in a class called Harvey Lembeck. If you look up Harvey Lembeck, he was a very famous sitcom actor and then an acting coach. And then his sons, Michael Lembeck, became a big director. Michael Lembeck, but Harvey was like the master. And I took his class and he taught me. And I mean, I don't think he ever knew my name. He would just call me, "Hey girl," or whatever. He was really tough. But I started getting my confidence through improv, and I met another young comic or comedic actor named Kenny Ellis. And I said, we should do an act together. So we started just doing this little act, sketch comedy together, kind of like our version of Saturday Night Live, and going up wherever we could. I mean, we'd go on showcases. In LA, there's a million showcases. We'd go on, oh gosh, there's a few names that escape me now, but even they would just have showcases all over town, and you could sign up for them and get on, and they would be not just comics, but they would be singers and dancers and I mean, you'd see Michael Jackson impressionists. It was ridiculous, but it was LA.
Yeah.
We used to go on at a famous country western club on a Thursday night or whatever, and then that led me to a show. It was a Chuck Barris show that I was on, a pilot, and I met a comic on that show that I kind of fell for. I think I fell for his act, but then I fell for him, and then we ended up being boyfriend and girlfriend. And then I would follow him around to the clubs, and he had done 20 Tonight shows as a headliner comic. So
Oh
it
my
just
God.
got into my blood by watching him. And then one day I announced to him, to his chagrin, I'm going to be a stand-up comic. He made fun of me for years. I'm going to be a stand-up. And he's like, sure, go ahead. I'm not going to follow you around. It took me a lifetime to get where I am. I'm not going to, follow you for your 2 minutes on stage. And so I literally would sit in front of every club and wait for my 2 minutes and build it up to 5 minutes and build it up to 10 minutes and build it up to 15 till I started being able to MC. And then I started able to open, and then I middled, and then I headlined. And it was 10 years of that, and but the Laugh Factory was a home club, and the Comedy Store and the Improv had to work very hard to get into those clubs to be considered a regular for your $17 a set. But still, it was an honor to work, with those great people, not only the comics, but the people who owned those clubs at the time. And then because not that many females were doing stand up when I was doing stand up in the
Yeah.
early 80s, mid 80s, I started going to delis and all these different places and said, could you have a night where you would just, let us come in and they all had little stages, and we'll just do stand up and, you know, uh, not to be paid. And I called it Rhonda Shear's Girls of Comedy. And basically I gave women stage time. Sometimes we'd have two people in the audience. Sometimes we had 10. Sometimes it was just the comics, but literally all of us bonded together and were able to at least get in front of an audience or a mic or stand up and start to do your thing. So it was a
Yeah.
really great time in LA to do that. I mean, I know people do start their careers, on YouTube and Instagram, not Insta, yeah, Instagram.
Yeah.
And it's kind of amazing to me because, I still, years ago, there was an article that Woody Allen wrote that to get a new joke to work, it may work the very first time you do it, a real joke, like a great joke that's part of your act. It takes about 100 times to keep doing it over and over. And it may not take 100 times, at least, I never got to Woody Allen's level, but it did take many times. And sometimes you do a joke and it would kill. And then you do it over and over and again, and it never worked again. And then maybe you change a couple of words and it would work. Stand up's an interesting and career, and it's hard because when you're up there doing your act, it all sounds like it's coming off the top of your head, but it's memorized material that you've worked out. And learning from this guy that I dated, Bobby Kelton, he taught me to create hunks of material. So if I started off on the hunk on dating, I think it was always dating because I was single, um, but that wasn't going well, then I could jump to the hunk on dogs, or whatever. So you knew that you could jump to another hunk and then have a couple of minutes there. So you were free associating, but you definitely had memorized material. It was real, and it's still that way. It's cool. Although now I have an agent that still wants to keep booking me in stand up, and I'm like, I haven't done it in a long time. I still love getting up and being funny, but I hate working on material now. I'm just in a different space, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't mind hosting a show. I still think I could be funny, have a few good jokes, and then play with the audience and not be quite as as studied as I was and well written. But I do like playing with the audience. But you can never just do that. You always have, unless you're really great at it, or you still have hunks that you go back to. But it's a
That's like a
great.
big thing in comedy right now, that there's some of those comedians, like the TikTok comedians and Instagram, that really, they just show their crowd work. Like all of the clips you see online now for stand up, a lot of times they're just like this crowd working clips, which I know there's some art, there's obviously the art to it, but I love that you mentioned like the hunk thing. That's such like an old school,
Well, but
like
that's
I'm
really,
sure people still do it nowadays, but that's what it is.
trust me, that material is memorized. It's so funny because a friend of mine just said, "Oh, actually not a friend, a doctor," but he thinks he's really funny. He always tells me jokes when I go to see him. He's my ear, nose, and throat doctor. But anyway, he said, "Oh, he loved Jerry Seinfeld. He saw him 3 times in a year. One was at a doctor convention. One was at some crazy party that another doctor threw for God knows what he paid him in the hundreds of thousands to perform in his party. And one was, I think he and his wife actually paid to go see him. And he's like, oh my God, he was so good. But then the second time I saw him, it was exactly the same material. And then the third
I know.
time,
Yeah.
it was exactly the same material. And I said, yeah, because he's a really good comic. So yeah, he probably was mixing it around, but those are well performed and well worked out hunks. And I recently worked in town a couple of months ago where this friend of mine from Home Shopping Network basically threw me on stage. He goes, I just want you to come out. There's a bunch of comics coming out. It's just like, we're just trying something at this club underneath a theater, and I just want you to tell stories. Nothing funny, just stories about HSM, whatever you want. So I got there, and all these local comics were really good, and a couple of them were not local, and they were doing material, not stories. And I was like, oh my God. So I quickly looked at my old act from a million years ago, pulled out a couple of old jokes in my head, played with the crowd in between. But they were an incredible crowd because they were there to laugh. But the headliner that evening was a guy whose whole act is telling stories as though he's just talking like you and I are talking. But that's his act.
Really?
Act, but it's storytelling that seems so real, like it's off the top of his head. And like you said, it's a real talent. He was I can't even think of the guy's name, but hysterical. And just a different way to do stand up in a different way, but it's all memorized and it's all
Yeah.
seemingly like off the top of his head, but really great stuff. because the stories were more
Oh, that's
behind the
cool.
scenes of what happens. The stories were behind the scenes of what happens to him at clubs. But what it is was all material. Oh, somebody called me. Let me just, oh,
You're good.
Syracuse. Yeah, see, I even get like prank calls in the middle of our,
Yeah.
but
No, but
so how
but that's
about you?
cool that
What?
even in the moment of you like learning and growing and doing this, you're like thinking about like okay, the opportunities for other people because like you're right, it was probably so hard for women to get stage time then, and again, things haven't really changed too
It
much in
probably,
all of
well,
these years, you know?
well, it's really interesting because now, okay, when I started doing stand up, I was told that I was too pretty, too sexy to do it, and that I had to look funny to be funny. And so, because that's what comics were doing, they were dressing down, the Paula Poundstones, except for Rita Rudner. I mean, they came before me, but all these girls were dressing down. And so it was right before I got all night, but or some time before, years before, but I still dressed. It was kind of the Madonna years with those big petticoats and being very feminine. So I would go on stage and try to be myself, be like sexy, not to be sexy, but to be more feminine, made up, big hair, the whole thing in the 80s. And I would have agents tell me, I don't know what to do with you. You're funny. You've got great presentation on stage. Your material's not there yet, but yeah, you've got the presence and but I don't know what to do with you because there was no one that fit into where I was. But I didn't take no for an answer. I kept going and going and going until finally I did headline and carved out my little niche. And Jenny McCarthy, even though she wasn't a stand-up, credited me for allowing her to be funny on some of her first shows on MTV because back then you couldn't be
Yeah.
sexy and funny. It was not accepted. I mean, I got away with that with with Up All Night, but people thought it was more sketchy. But they you just couldn't be sexy and funny. It just didn't go in people's minds. So, but finally, Jenny McCarthy kind of broke that mold too. But she thanked me. She says, "Thank
Yeah.
you for coming before me and doing that." But yeah, being a female comic is really rough. But now I get a kick because I turn on some of these new comics, these females, and I don't know they're all their names, but they're hot, they're gorgeous, they're like buff, they're wearing low cut stuff, short skirts, and I'm like, well, they earned it because they apparently had to keep doing it to get to that point where I was never able to really comfortably do that, you know.
Yeah, but you gave other people opportunities, and then all during that same time, you're doing that, and you're working, and you're like every year or two, you're on every show, and you were on Carson. How'd you end up being on Carson?
Well, I
Through
never was a guest of Carson's. I think I would have been a guest if Up All Night if Up All Night and he would have lasted it. No, Up All Night was running.
Cross,
If
yeah.
he would have lasted another year. But he started to put on all of his friends in the last year because he knew he was finishing up. So I did Larry King. I mean, I had a half an hour on Larry King, which was a huge big deal. So I was definitely publicists were getting me larger and larger talk shows, but I never got on Carson as a stand-up. But I was doing stand-up on a lot of other celebrity late night talk shows. So it was so
Oh, cool.
frustrating
No, it
for
has on here that it says actress in spoofs on Carson in '81. I
yeah,
know
oh, I did.
IMDb's not a
I
hundred
did
percent.
do. I
Oh,
only
okay,
did
cool.
one. I did a Mighty Carson art player as Scarlett O'Hara to his Rhett Butler. Rhett Butler. So I only got a chance to work with him once, but it was great. And I got a chance to work with some really great older comics that when they were literally dying off when I got to LA, but had a chance to work with God, I don't even know if you know these people, but George Burns and
Like
Bob
Buddy
Hope,
Hackett.
Buddy Hackett, Milton Berle, um, Don
Nice. Yeah, I
Rickles.
interviewed Buddy's son. I talked to Sandy Hackett, which was pretty cool because he did like a spot on impression of his father. Like if you close your eyes when I was talking to him, it was insane how perfect it
I knew
was.
Sandy Hackett, and Sandy used to run one of those
Club in
showcases.
Vegas.
Yeah, exactly. So I
Yeah.
worked that club. Um, and who else? Oh my God, you're bringing me back. I never worked with Tim Conway, but I worked with his son. No, but I got to work with a lot of, it was very, very, very cool time. I mean, I went out to LA like 80 in 1980. And so when you're there at that time, I mean, it was kind of the end of an era and the beginning of a new one, but I still had a chance to meet a lot of my idols, which was very cool. So, and to work with them. I mean, I got to work with Don Rickles and, God, who else was in that? Don, not Don Knotts. Yeah, from Maxwell Smart. Oh my God. Oh
Oh,
God.
why can't I think of his name? I
Don.
should
He's a
know that.
Don too. Another Don. Sorry, you're catching me, my brain off guard. And then the other girl, oh my gosh, she was famous on Mighty Carson Art Players too, the movie lady. She was in that, who's passed away since then. But no, I had a chance to work with a lot of great people. And yet, you never get over Hollywood. And I always kid and say Jennifer Coolidge got my job because she kept working at it and working at it, and we're right around the same age. And she is now, they don't call those roles bimbos; they call them. She's quirky, but Don
Yeah,
Adams.
yeah.
Thank you, Gene. Don Adams. So Don Adams, Don Rickles, the unknown comic who probably neither one of you know. You probably Murray
No,
Langston.
I wouldn't know the unknown comic.
He used to wear a paper bag over his head. He was known for his jokes, but he couldn't get arrested as a stand-up. And then, I mean, he still works. If you look up Murray Langston on Facebook, he's there. But so he started wearing a paper bag and going on the Gong Show with Chuck Barris, and then he got known as the unknown comic.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
they
awesome.
did do an unknown comic movie. Yeah, and he still works.
And that's
I
cool.
know
I gotta look it
Jackie the
up.
Joke Man. Yeah, I mean, my comedy legs are pretty long into that world. So, but I think I wish I would have gotten to do Carson, and then Letterman and those guys, like Leno knew me from the clubs. Like I would go up to do a set, Leno would follow me, because those clubs, it didn't matter if you were headline or not, you got your time. So he knew of me, but I
Yeah.
always thought he just thought I was like this young, sexy girl, and so he liked me. It's really funny about Leno though. A few years back, we won an award. My company won an award, Ernst and Young, for Entrepreneur of the Year in Florida. And so we went to the nationals. We were up for the national award. We didn't win it. Chobani Yogurt did, but they did very well. But Jay Leno has been emceeing the Ernst and Young Awards for years. So he was the MC that year, and I didn't get to go on stage because, I didn't win. So I'm like, I told my husband, I got to go see Leno. I'm going through the kitchen. He's like, what? I'm like, honey, I'm a comic. I know how to. He's in the kitchen. He's backstage looking at his notes. So I just walked like I knew where I was going, so no one would say stop. And I got back there. Jay, Rhonda, hugs and kisses. But he had to go back on stage, so I left, and not thinking, we got to say hello. And then literally about a week later, I'm standing in a grocery store, and I get a phone call from Jay, and I'm in the grocery aisle, and it's kind of loud. And he's like, Rhonda, I just want to tell you, I'm so proud of you. And he goes on and on. He goes, you did better than staying in Hollywood. You're a mogul. You were an entrepreneur. You really did something with your life. And I'm really, really, really proud of you. I mean, it was very cool. It was very
Yeah, that
cool.
is really cool.
So, yeah. And I think
That's
that was
awesome.
like his last years, in his last years of hosting as well. Yeah. And so but I did all these, there were so many talk shows that I did do. I don't know if you found all those. Arsenio Hall. No, but I'm not,
Oh,
but the,
cool. That's a good
the
one to
guy,
be on.
the guys that like, oh God, who's his name? Deasy. He was like the big radio. Rick Dees. Rick Dees Into the Night. Those were all big nighttime shows. I'm addressing Gene on this. Into the Night, Arsenio Hall, they all had talk shows, and I did stand up on those shows. You've got to find those.
That's cool.
Yeah, because I did a few of them. I can't remember them all now, but I would come out and do basically the same thing you would do on the Tonight Show, but it wasn't for Carson. But I did my set. It was very cool.
Hey, you did it. That's awesome. And you're like, and like you said, you were able to work with all these and be able to meet all these like comedians of like that era. But even like show wise, I think then it was like every show because there were obviously a lot of shows, but there wasn't like a million channels and a million streaming service that we have
No,
now. But like every
no.
year, you're on like every hit show.
Yeah, no, it was pretty amazing. And the 90s were amazing for me because I did all the talk shows, and I have a funny story. I can't pronounce his last name, but he's a huge comic now. Sebastian Maniscalco,
Maniscalco, something like
something
that.
like that. So my story with him is just a funny story. I was on Up All Night. I was still doing stand up, and every weekend I went to the Four Seasons Hotel, which was literally around the corner from where I lived, my apartment. And he was a waiter there. He was a young waiter, and I would be like, he'd be like, I love comedy. He had the real Italian accent. I went, oh, Sebastian, you're the best. Could you get me some more wasabi peas, please? Because everybody in LA wants to be an actor. And yes,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm always about, yes, do it. Follow your heart, follow your heart. He goes, oh, you're so funny. And I want to do what you're doing. Stand up is what I want to do. And I was like, and he was really young and a waiter. And man, he went off and did it. And it's like, I tried to reach out to him and never could. Who's the other, no, not, well, Joe Rogan, but who's the Asian guy that I love that I worked with him? He's done tons of TV now. And now he's on uh, the Masked Comic. No, the Masked Comic. Um,
Oh, Ken Jung?
Ken Jeong. So I'm sorry, having brain farts today because I wasn't thinking about
No,
it. And
no.
I'm in my business mode today. So Ken Jeong, my story with him is so good. So I was, let's see, I was middling and he was emceeing. Okay, so he was a brand new comic. He was still in med school because his parents were Korean, and they're like, you need to have something to fall back on. So you have to go to med school. They were very strict with him. You have to marry a Korean girl, and he was very, into his background and who he was, and loved his parents. So he was in med school, and this was in Lake Tahoe. I'm trying to remember the club now. The improv in Lake Tahoe. And so anyway, I was the middle act. He was the opening act. And then there was a headliner. I can't remember who the headliner was. But I hung out with Ken every night for a week. As a matter of fact, we worked 2 weeks up there together. We ended up working. But I'm a hypochondriac, and I still am to this day. I had him examining me between shows, listening to my heart, feeling my pulse. I mean, and I was giving him all my symptoms of whatever I thought I had at the time. And he was good. He was like a really good he was going to be a great little doctor. And he told me the whole story with his parents. And we just had the best time. But I looked at him as an opening act. I mean, that's your MC, your opening act. He was so funny and so naturally good. And I said, man, this kid's going to make it. But he's going to be a doctor. He's never going to stick with stand up. Like, how could you stick with
Yeah.
stand up if you're going to be a doctor? And then look what happened to his career, the films, and then where he is now. And I've tried to reach out to him.
Yeah,
I
like The
never was able to
Hangover.
get what?
Like The Hangover,
Hangover.
when he did that
That's
movie,
what
that
started.
like
I think
was
that's what
it.
started.
Because I think it
Well, he
might have
could
been on
just
Community already or at the same time, but those two things, and then now look, like you just said,
Then he had his own sitcom for a minute or two, but he's definitely a really good actor. I mean, he
and he
did
was
all
a
these great
doctor.
talent,
He could
and
tell his
he's a doctor.
parents, I was a doctor because he had Dr. Ken for a couple seasons.
But he did marry a gal, a beautiful Korean gal, and they did have kids. And then the wife went through some illness, which is really sad, but she's fine. But I've heard him talk about, I think she might have had breast cancer or a cancer, if not breast. And he talks about his journey with her. So apparently everything worked out right. Being a doctor, being a comic, bringing joy, they say laughter is the best medicine. So yeah, I've had some. So those are my, younger stories with the younger comedians that went on and did it. And then of course I've got, stories. I'll tell you what you have to listen for and tell your listeners to your viewers and listeners
Yeah.
to listen to is my podcast, which is one of the dirtiest podcasts with Gilbert Gottfried. God bless him. So I was one of his earliest podcast on his or guest on his podcast, and I know Gilbert obviously from Up All Night and working with him. So I know how dirty he can be and how blue he can be. So and I know his impressions. So I started naming all the comics of yesteryear, like Red Buttons and what he whispered in my ear, which he really did, and Milton Berle, and then just all these guys that I knew that came through my life. And he went off into his impressions of what they were saying to me. Dirty, and funny. Somebody came up to me at this Franken Con convention, one of the people getting an autograph, and said, That was my favorite podcast that he did in all the years he did it. He goes, "You guys were so funny together."
I got to
But
listen to it tonight. That's
I
awesome.
purposely kept leading him to these names, knowing that he was going to take it and run with it. I knew it was going to be funny. I knew that I wouldn't probably come off as funny, but I knew that he was going to do what he loved because he loved all the old comics and he could
Well,
do
you're a
all their
good
voices.
teammate. That's improv. You were good. You were passing him the
You know
ball,
what?
passing him the rock, and he was taking it.
You know what's really funny that you say that is there was two people I worked with that I really thought my dream when I went to LA was to do a sitcom. It never I guessed it on them, but I never had my own. I'm still waiting to play the cougar. But there was two people I thought that I had incredible chemistry with is in male chemistry, and one was Gilbert. And every time we would do a show together, I'm like, why doesn't the network see that we have this incredible chemistry? And I play up to him like he's sexy, but yet he's this nerd. And it's really this cool chemistry. No one ever saw it, at least higher up ever saw it. And then another guy who became a big Broadway music guy, Seth Rudetsky. Thank you, Gene, for being my brain today.
Oh, I
Another
know
guy
that
named
name. I should know that.
Seth Rudetsky was an upcoming Broadway musician, but actor. And so he got on Up All Night and did several, wrote them, and we did several of them together where he played we need to do that. Where we're coming up with ideas for the reboot too, where he was my music teacher, and I kept thinking, spoofing that I could really sing, and then I take him to my high school reunion, and I take him to meet my sister one time, and then I take him where I'm auditioning for Broadway, and we had such amazing chemistry. But then, he went off and shot up into the Broadway world. And I think, he came down. I don't know if he did. I heard him speak or do stand up. I can't remember, but I just remember have him sign an autograph book for me. Uh, I know he went off and did really well in that world. Those two guys in my life, and they were both, not the handsome leading man type. They were the funny, almost nerdy kind of guys, but I had such great chemistry with them. And so
That's
I
awesome.
saw it, but no one else did, I guess.
how
Maybe
did
it's
how
not
did
like
how did you get approached for up all night? Was that something that you had an idea of, or?
no, I had an agent and I had a manager. I was with Dick Clark Management, and Dick Clark Productions had a management wing, and my manager managed Tim Conway Jr., who was directing Up All Night at the time. They had another gal named Caroline Schlitt on there. And so he knew, my manager knew because Tim Conway was his client, that they were getting ready to recast her. For some reason, USA Network didn't like her. I thought she was good. Like, I was like, why are they getting rid of this girl? She's really funny. She was darker comedy. Like, should be more hip by today's standards. But I think what they were looking back then was for more sensuality. And so I kept getting cast. I kept going out for the girl next door parts and never getting them. So finally, when I got this audition and I got it through my manager, I'm like, screw the girl next door. I'm just going full out sexy. I'm going to wear my hair big, low cut clothes, just act ridiculous. And I did. And it took 3 months, but I ended up getting it. And because it was all about keeping the attention of viewers until they watched commercials for Snapple and Snickers and, Budweiser.
Yeah.
And I would actually go out on calls with the advertising guys to go make sure that Budweiser's kept advertising for the next 3 years. It was just an insane time where things were looser. And Kay Koplovitz, who was the CEO of USA Network, she started the network and came from what's the big venue in New York? Oh my God. You, yeah, what'd you just say? Not Carnegie Hall. No, no, keep going. Name another one. Anyway, you can look up Kate Koplovitz and see where she came from. It'll come up. And she started USA Network. They call her the mother of basic cable. And she had to approve hiring me, and she did. When I got that Ernst and Young, she was like reached out also and was like, "Oh my God, I'm so proud of you," because anybody who
That's
breaks away from the
amazing.
industry, I think they get very excited that you've chosen something else as well. But now, you know, full circle. I don't know if I told you, I worked in a movie a couple of years ago, which is out, called The Throwback. I just did another film called The Big Game. It's with Joel Murray, who's Bill Murray's brother,
Oh,
and
nice.
Amy Yasbeth, who is John Ritter's wife, was John
Yes, yeah.
Ritter's wife. And it was a really good film, really a lot of working actors in it. And it's called The Big Game, and it comes out next year. And I think it's going to win some awards at film festivals. It's really this dark comedy, and I have this wonderful kissing scene with a younger man. It's fabulous, but it's funny. I mean, you know, it's a funny movie. But it's done very straight, and a lot of awkward pauses. So it's interesting how the director saw it, young director, made locally, but I was the only person that lived in Florida that worked in the film. So I have that, and we're rebooting Up All Night, and then I'm getting ready to start a podcast on the 23rd, called Rhonda at Night, and it's going to be everything. I'll have people like you on. I'll have movie directors on. I'll have Linnea Quigley on. I'll have all female topics about health, self love. It's going to be a little bit of everything, but very open and fun and funny, hopefully. But it will also be informative too. Um, so that I'm excited about, and just getting back into acting, which has just kind of come around because people who are directing now knew me when they were growing up. So they're like, "Oh, I wonder if Rhonda would do this part." So it's kind of fun.
Yeah. No,
And
that's
then I've
cool. Was
auditioned for
the
a
was
couple of
the
things.
Oh yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah, no,
No,
I
no, I
mean,
was
I
gonna
got,
say for
go ahead.
Up All Night. So while you're doing that, like, so again, you're doing the stand up, you're doing acting, you have Up All Night. How did you, in your time, because there's not much time at then, how did you end up like getting into like clothing and lingerie, and how did that come
That
to
was
be?
called, it's so funny because banks through the years have asked my husband and I what was our business plan, and we literally say survival. So my husband and I and it's true. My husband and I, he was living in Louisiana when we got married, and I was living in LA. And I had done very well financially, but went through all my money because I'm a horrible person with money, horrible with money, I should say. And my husband's a great businessman and had the business sense, but he also had gone through a divorce and ended up losing his company through some personal things with the ex-wife and all this nightmare. So we're both here. We get into this marriage and we're like, okay, we have a little savings. We're good. We'll find something to do together. I'll still continue acting and I'll do stand up. And then all of a sudden, and this is in my book, I have a book. So there's nothing I'm saying that's new here, or unless you haven't read my book, but we crashed and burned. We both had to file bankruptcy. We were freaking down and out. I mean, we still managed to eat well and live in nice apartments. I don't know how. We were using I hocked all my jewelry. We sold everything that we owned and had this whisper of a chance to reach out to Home Shopping Network. And so they took us in, we got some products, sold it, and I sold that right away. Well, my husband's counting dollars, and I'm just going, wow, I'm on TV. Not that anyone watches Home Shopping Network for the next star of the next film, but I was just happy to be on air again. And he's counting how much we're making in these short minutes because HSN goes by dollars per minute, not by ratings.
Yeah,
And this little moment on air turned into 23 years of our business, and slowly working with companies that would help us, because we didn't have a credit line, we didn't have a banker. We kept making the money and literally putting it back in, literally putting it back in. And then we were living in LA. I finally, he took, my husband had never worked for anybody else but himself, and I had worked for myself being an actress. So, we pretty much, he never was really good at working for anyone else either. But when we really hit rock bottom there, he took a job and it just didn't work out in Dallas. So we moved from Dallas to San Diego. He never got a job there. And we moved from San Diego. I'm like, well, I've got him out of Louisiana and it's close to LA. Come on, let's go back to LA. Maybe it's my time to shine. Well, people still hadn't gotten over the Up All Night character or what they perceived me as an actress to be. I was very stuck in that character. So for the few months that we were there, nothing happened for me except a couple of talk show appearances here and there. But I didn't get any other roles. If we would have stayed there, I would have aged out of that persona, but we didn't stay there because we got this opportunity and we started flying back and forth from LA to Florida to go on air with our product. And the company started to grow. And we did an infomercial on one of our products. And then the company blew up. I mean, we were like, where's this money coming from? What's happening here? We're getting entrepreneur. I'm like an entrepreneur. I thought I was a bimbo last week. Now I'm an entrepreneur. And so it was just like, it was like too good to be true. But it really was the combination of my marketing and my design and my on air and stand up comedy and hit all of his business strength. And then banks were coming to us out of the ears. You know, no one would talk to us before. So it's been an interesting journey. And then we started producing worldwide our product and designing it. So we learned from literally not knowing any other than I love to design clothing and I love clothing and fashion.
Yeah.
And I always loved it. Even on Up All Night, I changed 4 or 5 times in a night to keep people coming back to see, oh, what is she going to wear in the next scene? So I've always loved costume. So it wasn't a hard jump for me to make into that intimate world because I spent a lot of time in intimates on Up All Night and also designing costumes and working with costumers. So my love of fashion, that wasn't hard to do. The hardest thing was being on the air for 23 years on HSN and going live at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, because it's a live shopping network. So it's grueling, even though I love my line and what it stands for. It's grueling time on air. And it's not like acting and doing stand up. You know, I'm being cute and funny, but and talking about my
Yeah.
line, but you're still selling. You know, it's not like your love of acting and just being immersed in a character or immersed, you know, where you are. So it's fun for me to go full circle now and get back into acting, even though it's obviously I'm not doing it all the time. But now that we
Yeah.
have this studio and we will be able to create for other people, and then we can create Up All Night, and maybe so that'll spin off into something else, and then we will create for our product line because obviously everything is social media and um, content. So we can obviously create a lot of content for myself along with other people. And I think it's just a perfect timing. And I don't know why I don't want to retire on my husband at my age, but I don't feel like I'm any different in age than I was during Up All Night. So, I mean, and I was definitely energized at this convention last week with all the fans. It's like, I forgot what that was like. And I know people do these conventions and these cons like every week. I definitely want to do more, but I need to do them in the world that will know me. I can't get lost like in a big one where it's so many, huge actors. I have to do ones that are relatable to, the kind of films that we show, the horror ones. There's definitely a lot of those weekly as well. But, I don't want to do one every week, but
Yeah. Oh no, there definitely are. They're all the time. But no, I helped an actor. He's been in a million things. This guy Larry Hankin, 85. He has more passion than like just how he'll randomly call me and if I don't answer it or if it's late because he's in LA and I'm in Jersey, he'll leave me a voicemail and be like, "Oh, I got a great idea another book." And I'm like, "Wow, at 85, like he is just
I think that's what keeps you
so
going.
hungry." Yeah.
But that's a great word. And I'm still hungry and I still have dreams that wake me up about achieving. And it's like, shouldn't I just be having dreams about laying on the couch or, having caviar and champagne? But that's not. I dream about creating. Like it's
Yeah, Larry
really
just went up and did stand up again for the first time, and like he was
gee,
doing it way back in the day. Like he was opening up for Miles Davis, which is cool. Me helping him with this book, which I didn't even know how to do, but I'm
wow.
like, oh, I know him from Seinfeld and Friends, like these little parts, or he's in Home Alone or Armed and Dangerous, like a ton of credits. But I wouldn't have known he was doing stand up, and I wouldn't even known stand ups used to open up for bands. Like he opened up for Lovin' Spoonful, and they were like razzing him because he was doing like religious jokes, and they were at a religious university, and the students were taking the arms off the chairs, throwing up in the stage, but just these insane stories, like, and you're like, wow, this
I've
is
got all those kind of
nuts.
stories, and university stories seem to be the funniest one. But oh my God, I so relate to all of that. I so relate. And I opened for Johnny Rivers, who you probably don't know, The Temptations,
Oh, okay.
Smokey Robinson. So I had this wonderful run of Vegas acts and that I was opening for, and that was fun because back then, when you open, I don't know how it is now, but when you open for an act, they treated you like gold. And then when my husband and I first got married, I rebooted a show that I had done a stand-up show called Rhonda Shear's Up All Night Pajama Party. And this is a show that my agent still talks about me doing, where it's me and all the other female comics on stage. All of us are on stage at the same time, like in a bedroom set, almost like an up all night set, in their pajamas and their nightgowns. And one at a time, they get up and do their best 15 minutes, but we kind of interplay with the audience and each other throughout it. Really cool concept. Probably I was ahead of my time because now these shows, you see these kind of shows out there where when I was doing it, no one was doing like themed shows. But when my husband and I first got married, we booked into Suncoast, which was a casino in Vegas, and oh my God, the treatment they gave us being the headliners of the room. So they asked us one night to hold the show for their top gamblers. And I'm like, sure, what do I care? Please hold the show another half hour, whatever it was. And I'm like, I stay literally up all night anyway. And they're like, oh, thank you. And they gave us the King's presidential suite. It was insane. I mean, you see these suites in Vegas. I'm sure there's even crazier one, but I had never seen a suite like that. They chauffeured me and my, I mean, they'll take care of that anyway, but literally we had our own driver for the whole, I think it was 3 or 4 days that we were there. They got us into shows and restaurants. They took care of us like, I'm like, wow, that's what it's like to be like really up there, like a big. It was just very cool. And but even when you were
That's a cool
opening for
concept. I haven't
people,
heard that type of show. Well, I was living in Portland, Oregon for a few years, so they had a fun comedy community and like improv I was
yeah,
doing.
Portland, yeah.
But they had a one. It was like spot the person who's not stoned. So they'd have like
Huh.
five stand-ups go up, and one person wouldn't be high, and you had to like I think at the end like vote. Obviously, it was funny
Wait,
because the one
the
time,
audience,
huh?
wait, the audience was voting on the comics who wasn't stoned.
They were trying to guess who wasn't stoned, which is pretty. Sometimes it was easy to do because you'd have comedians that were going that didn't really smoke that much, and they would get really high, and they'd be like tripping over the words. But it was like a cool, like experimental
That's so
comedy,
funny.
which is neat. It kind of like what you were doing was something like you're not just going for stand up, which is going to be funny, but it's like this whole like different
That's
world.
Are you listening to that, Gene? That's so funny. That's so funny. I mean, Gene loves comedy too. He's my producer here, who's with me today, um, who's
Yeah,
helping me produce all these wonderful things that we're getting ready to do. But yeah, that's great. That's hysterical. Yeah, Portland's got a very healthy comedy community. So does the East Coast of Florida. And I haven't
that's
really,
cool.
yeah, I mean, I haven't gotten into it here because I haven't had time because we've been so much into our business. And now people are wanting me to do it again. And I think, oh my God, will I have time to do that? I don't know. But I'd host a show. I feel like I could host it. I could MC a show, but I just couldn't work on doing an hour of material now. Although my husband laughs
Yeah,
and
but
goes,
that'd be just cool to like just do an MC every so often because people know you. They would go, and then it would
yeah,
give the other people exposure. But even like in Jersey and New York, like the cable, not now obviously YouTube, like there's avenues to get stuff out there. But like those old like cable access shows, like there's a guy out here.
yes,
His show's not out anymore. It was called the Chris Gethard Show, and it was
yeah.
like an hour of the most obscure stuff. Like you had no clue what was going to
Wow.
happen, which is what makes it fun, and that's why so many people, and I think came up to you last weekend, and like I'm saying now, like when you watched USA Up All Night, like you really didn't know what to expect. Obviously, there were themes to each episode, or when you guys did like the cross promotions. Like I
Right.
remember I interviewed Vanessa Angel, so I was like trying to watch
Yeah.
all of her old stuff, and you guys had
Oh,
the Weird
wow.
Science crew on the one night.
Yes, yes. Well, I was on Weird Science once. So they did this wonderful cross promotions. Oh my God,
Cool.
she was so adorable. Is she still acting or whatever happened to her? She's
Yeah, no, she's still acting. Yeah,
good, good. Yeah, yeah. I did Weird Science, and then they had me on an episode of Duckman. I wasn't a duck. I was Rhonda. I wasn't a duck though. I was myself.
yeah, no, it just has your name on here. Yeah. You're married with children, Spaceballs. So you were in like so many different cool things over the
And you know
years.
what? So many people know me from Spaceballs, and it was one line. But it was an incredible experience, and people at the convention were coming up with Spaceball, posters, and it's amazing what people have as memorabilia. It's just
Yeah.
what they keep for people to sign. No, I've done a lot. I've had a very eclectic career. It was always hard for me to say no. So a lot of talk shows. Comedy's my favorite. I love comedy. And if I had one thing that I could do right now and say, wow, if you could do anything you want in the world of entertainment other than my bra and panty line, I would say a sitcom. I still think that I would, because doing a sitcom, it's like you start on a Monday and you have a table read with the cast, and then Tuesday you get up and you start to block it, and Wednesday you're rehearsing it and trying to get rid of the book, and then Thursday you're off book and you're really rehearsing it, and Friday you tape it. So it's like a little mini play every week. And then you're in front of a live audience with 3 cameras. And it's just, there was something about that genre that just was, it was everything I loved. It was live, or it felt live, even though obviously, they taped 2 shows, one in the morning and one at night. And even though they taped both, they 2 takes, they would take the best of and edit those. It still had that live feeling because you still got the laughs from an audience from the jokes. I don't know. It's just the coolest to me of anything.
Yeah. What
I've
were some of the ones that were like the hot crowds? Because you always hear the stories of whenever you watch documentaries on, like, especially Rob Williams, like Mork and Mindy was like the place to go. But I'm sure like Married with Children, that was in front of a live studio
Married
audience,
with
right?
Children was a killer audience.
Yeah.
And Happy Days was good. Yeah, I mean, well, they do have warm-up comics in all of these, and so they
Yeah.
have a warm-up comic but no doubt, Married with Children was a really funny show. And from what I remember, especially when I made my entrance on that show, and when I made my entrance on Full House when I was playing the kid grown up,
Yes, the
Kimmy
adult
Gibbler.
Kimmy Gibbler.
Huge response from the audience when I came out, the sexy girl, the sexy older girl, playing her. And I was on their podcast, their Fuller House podcast recently. I think
Oh,
podcasts are
that's
just
neat.
wonderful. I do. I think they're down. Do you do radio? And do you come from a radio background? Because you're very good.
No. No, I think
No,
it's just my voice. I don't know. No, I'm an accountant now, but I did sales for a lot of years, and like
I
I
love
love
it.
doing like I love being stupid and like doing improv or singing a ridiculous song karaoke. Like I always enjoyed that kind. I was shy, like you, like to be honest, I was really shy when I was in middle school, and then it hit like sophomore year, and then I tried marijuana, and it like opened up something for me. I don't know if it's like for everyone, but it really changed just my whole like outlook and maybe like the
I
way
get
my
it.
brain works or something. But
No,
no,
no.
yeah,
You were just being able to be freer. No, that's cool, and especially
yeah.
with accounting. And it's funny you say accounting is where, we've had such trouble in that area in my business, and we finally just got an accountant. I don't know the software that we use. It's not my world. When it comes to numbers, it's my husband. Accountants are usually, no offense, so dry because it's all
Well,
very black
I know you're gonna
black and
say.
white and numbers. And we just hired an accountant, 2 women that are so cool, especially the main one.
Yeah,
Oh my God, she's hysterical. I'm like, wow, I think finally this could be it. Like they get me. It's like, I don't know. It's just really, really, it could be really exciting. You that are always, I mean, you have to be very, you know, perfect in what you do. I could never do it. My checkbook never, when I back in the day, never balanced. I never, my father taught me
yeah,
how and never did. And my husband, that's why we work really well together as a team because he's got that side of the brain. He's also very creative, but I've definitely the creative side. So I don't
yeah. No,
have,
that's good.
and apparently
He's the
sales.
yin to your yang. But no, it's that good combo of it. And I love doing sales. Just like when I had kids, I was just like, I need something that has hours and like I can work from home, so I don't have to go to Manhattan every day, and I can like work at night or work early in the morning, so I could be at things. So that
Sales
was
is
like the most
hard.
important thing. But I think being able to do podcasts and stuff, it gives me an opportunity to talk to people that I really truly loved and admire growing up. And it's really cool because I love learning about how they get started because it's not like a normal thing. Like there's never
No,
like,
there's
oh
never
yeah, I
one
wanted to
way.
be an actor, I did this. It's always like a weird way to get into it. Like there's
It's
nothing
weird. It
normal
is. Well,
about it.
especially because I majored in communications. I was very much a homebody, didn't want to leave my parents, but yet LA called me. I ran for office. I probably would have been a politician if I would have stayed in New Orleans, way ahead of my time. But I said, let me just go out there for the summer. And then I had great luck because I hit the ground running. I always treated it like a business. Every day I worked at it. Back then, you'd send pictures and resumes and literally knock on doors. And that's why I had to push myself, kind of like sales, because you're selling yourself. And back then it wasn't all done
Yeah.
on the internet, or, it was all done live. Getting an agent, booking showcases, or getting in classes, hoping an agent or a casting director would see you. It was insane. And my parents
Yeah.
helped me in the very beginning. So I never wanted to make them think they were wasting their time or money. So it was a business. And I reported to them like they were my bosses every day. So, and I respected that. And then I did have pretty good luck in the beginning, along with my hard work, and things started to pay off. And I was out there, and I never thought I'd move. I mean, I'm still shocked that I moved because I really loved LA. Of course, I loved the business I was in. I'm not sure how I would have felt if I was doing something else. It was a great community of people. I still have a lot of friends in the acting world from out there. It's like once you have those friends, you understand it. You know what you've been through together, or not
Yeah.
not necessarily together, but you know what it takes to get there. And I'm not sure if people understand. They just think, oh, it's a glamorous life. It's so fabulous. You're on a set. It's so
I know
exciting.
people
And
don't. I know.
they don't get
Just
it.
just the stories, even like talking to people in these interviews, or like getting more in depth when I helping out Larry. It was like you might think like somebody's on a movie, but like it's not that it's grueling. It's not hard
Well, it's
labor, but you
right.
sometimes are sitting in a trailer hey, you gotta be on set at 5, and it's like they don't call you until 3 in the afternoon. You're
Get out.
doing
Yeah.
nothing, just waiting for
No.
your name. That's like hard. It's like, all right, come on, you're
No, it's
on.
horrible. It's horrible. The film I just did, the scene I had, my big scene, which was my big close. Well, I had it was, I mean, I was in a lot, most of the film, but the scene with the guy where, I'm trying to come on him and there's something going on and he's trying to get away from me. But that was like a big scene. It was like a little turning point in the film. They ended up doing it at 5 a.m. and I was called in at, I think, 3 p.m. So it was a long, long day. And then to pull myself, I mean, I'm not 20 anymore, that energy out of me, it was fine. Once I did it, I was full of energy, obviously, but, and then you're wired after that, so you can't sleep. No,
Yeah,
it's not easy. But it feeds your soul if you love it, and I always encourage everybody, people go, what do you tell people? It's hard. They usually don't make it. People don't usually make it. It's true. Whatever making it is. I mean, I think I worked the whole time. So to me, that's making it.
yeah.
Different levels, obviously, but I always encourage people to follow their dreams and never wonder about it. Never go back and say, gee, I wish I would have done that, you
Oh,
know?
100%. Yeah, because you can never like you're 90 years old and you're like, oh, I wish I would have. It's like, well, just try it. Try whatever
Yeah.
you're thinking about.
Yes. Yeah. You can't. Well, I think it's impressive that you get all these different guests, and you'll have to share some of your guests with me because I'm looking out there right now
Yeah.
too. And,
Well, I'm sure
you know,
most of the people are people that you've talked. Like one name I was gonna mention because this has been great. What movie wise? Because like you were saying, like, hey, I could never say no. One movie I talked to Denise Duff, from Frogtown 2.
oh,
I know you had a small
yeah.
part in it, and I think you were only
Yes.
you were just like on communication on the TV in one of the scenes, I think.
I can't remember what I did. There's very few things that I can't remember at all. That's one of them. I knew I
Yeah,
was in
yeah,
it, Return to Frogtown too, but I forgot what I did.
yeah.
I'm glad you reminded me. We'll have to rent it to see or get it. And there was a couple of other ones that I've done that I can't remember. My parts were so tiny in them. And what's really interesting though is that I hosted all these movies. All of these movie producers came through the set and directors. What's the big one? That won the B minus movie? Roger Corman.
Oh,
He was
nice.
on the B minus movie awards that we had. I could have talked to these guys at any point. I mean, I was the right age, I was the right look, and just said, I want to be in one of your films. I had zero interest. It was all about doing comedy to become a sitcom actress. I had zero interest in the films. I used to think, oh, these girls are not putting them down. Not. I don't mean it that way,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
they're doing the horror films. I don't want to do a horror film. I want to be on a sitcom. So I mean, I had these blinders on so tight that I never saw that if I would have been in some of those films, it could have led to great, to me. And then some of the films I did later on, which were a little spicier, and it showed off my acting chops. I'm like, man, I should have been doing these films a long time ago, and I could have.
Yeah,
These
yeah,
people were so accessible to me, but I never once reached out to
yeah.
those people. And it's still, I'm like, man, youth is wasted on young. I was just stupid. It was just stupid, right in
And
front of
that
me.
was at the time if you like did movies, it was like if you did movies, if you're a movie actress, you couldn't be a TV actress.
Well,
Like
oh
I know
yeah,
some people did that, but it was like really a
no,
no thing.
no, no, you did not mix it. You were neither TV or film. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's where I looked at. I'm like, I'm not going to do films because I want to be a TV actress. I mean, I was
Yeah.
a TV baby. I grew up watching I Dream of Jeannie and, Bewitched, and I wanted to be like those women. And I just had my blinders on, and it was just like so stupid. And again, some of the films I did later on, I'm like, wow, I should have done those films. It would have been just fun, and I would have made money, but I just didn't think of it. So now I'm doing it.
It
Never
all
too
worked
late.
out.
Like you're
You're where
85.
you are right now. If anything would have changed in that timeline, you wouldn't have reconnected with your junior
That's
high and high
true.
school sweetheart. So
That's
that's why I
true.
always
No,
look at those things when you think back, like, oh, I should have tried this, or I should have, then I wouldn't be where I am right now.
no, it's
Another
true.
last thing, and I think I know the connection was probably because USA Network and Monday Night Raw. But how like it was WrestleMania 10, right? That was the one that you worked at.
WrestleMania 10, I was the bell ringer, the ringer bell or whatever. Yes, USA Network at the time owned, I don't know if they owned it, but WWF,
Yeah,
and
Raw was
aired it.
on Monday nights on that
Yeah,
channel.
so it was
Yeah,
always on. So they always had other shows. Yes. So they did USA Network, I have to say, did a lot of cross promotions. And so I covered for them. We did up all night shows where I would go and cover some of the fights and the guys. And then they did cross promotion where they would bring me to Vegas. And then I forget, was it Shawn Michaels? I think was it Shawn Michaels?
Shawn
I don't know.
Michaels
One
is
of
your
the,
famous clip. Shawn Michaels
okay.
is that famous, right? When he's talking with you and like flirting with you, right?
So Shawn
Yeah, yeah.
Michaels, they set it up where I was in a few magazines with him that he was my boyfriend. So people really believed it. And so we did all these cute, these photographs together where he's like looking in the mirror and pushing me out of the way. It was all set up. But I got to hang out with these guys a lot. So I got to know them. And I didn't think anything of them other than they were like, to me, they were like sort of somewhere between comedy and carnival. They were
Yeah.
really interesting. And then I would go out to eat with them and they would eat a pile back then. I don't know how these guys, they would say probably differently now, but pancakes for the carbs and then a pile of meat. I've never seen anything like it. They would just eat like going out to dinner like the casinos would feed them like crazy amounts of food. So I covered a lot of stuff for USA Network that was on USA Network, like the famous boxing matches from Vegas. But so
Yeah.
anyway, that is how WrestleMania came about partially because my publicist Jenny Garth at the last minute backed out. I think it was Jenny Garth. I think it was Jenny Garth backed out. And so there was an open, not at the last minute. There was no, I'm confusing two different things. I was just confusing Circus of the Stars, which I did. Jenny Garth backed out of Circus of the Stars. Jenny Garth was on WrestleMania with me. But yes, WrestleMania did come through USA Network. So another show, which I don't know if you've ever aired that one, Gene, but my Circus of the Stars, which was back then, they would have this show where they would have television stars do real circus acts. And I
Oh,
did,
really? That's
oh, it was
awesome.
it was an amazing show. It was a year, and I worked with Leslie Nielsen, Downtown Julie Brown, and major stars were on the show. And I did like an aerial acrobatic routine, comedic, and then but people did the tigers and the lions and the tightrope and the whole thing. It was the most amazing thing. But Jenny Garth backed out of that, and I only had like 2 weeks to prep, flying around in the air. And but I did it, and I got paid a whole lot of money, so it was really great.
Wow. Was
I
that
didn't
through
mind
USA
teaching it.
Network?
That was not. I had a great publicist, back then publicist, I don't know if they still do, but would, that's kind of, it was kind of a weird place. It didn't fall under an agent, but it fell under a publicist, and they would look for acts and go to publicist. And maybe Leslie Nielsen was promoting a movie, so he's going to be on Circus of Stars, so he'll get to promote the movie, and he'll be the ringmaster. He was like, I'm just naming, I don't remember what he was promoting at the time,
Yeah, yeah.
but so it's like a cross promotion thing. But yeah, I mean, they paid a lot because you
That's
would
cool.
join.
What channel was that on?
Oh, I think it was ABC. It was definitely on
Really?
a
I
major
hope I can
network.
find that. That's got to be
Yeah.
on. Trust
So
me, you can
it's on,
find anything on YouTube. I'm sure that's
Gene,
on there.
Gene created a YouTube channel for me called Rhonda Shear TV. So if you go there and you look
Oh,
up
cool.
not WrestleMania, well, probably WrestleMania too, but if you look up Circle of the Stars, it'll come up. So
That's
yeah, I mean,
awesome.
so yes, I've had this crazy eclectic career, and the fact that I just put those two to get things together is kind of funny. But
I know, right?
yeah,
Well, they're kind.
WrestleMania. So
It's
I
funny.
think
They're two separate things, but you kind of the way you talked about wrestling, it is kind of a circus. That's really what it is. You'd see these
I'll tell
guys
you.
beat each other up, yelling at each other, and they walk past that curtain, and it's like, oh man, that was fun. Like,
Well, yeah,
yeah,
and they actually speak. Circus performers have their own language called Carney talk. I don't remember how. I mean, it's like a lot of slang and a lot of words that we wouldn't know. And wrestlers speak Carney talk. Yeah, you need to look that up. Carny. So they
that's cool.
have that. They speak Carney talk the same way carnival performers do. So they do have their own very tight knit community. And what's very interesting is that Tampa Bay, where I live now, was where wrestling started, literally. And a lot of the wrestlers still lived here. Randy Savage, I mean, he passed away a few years ago, but
Oh
he
yeah.
lived here. Hulk still lives here. So it's a very interesting community that it started here. But wrestling, I still have wrestling fans. They cross over to the scary movies. And then I have wrestlers that that like me, that watched me growing up. So this guy named Rick Nemeth, I don't know if you know Rick Nemeth, but he's apparently
I
a
know the
huge.
name if I looked it up.
He's somebody that we want to get for one of our first shows. He's like, I'll do anything for you, Rhonda, but he's huge and he's very
That's
handsome.
awesome.
So I think we definitely want to have a tie-in with wrestlers because it is definitely the same fan base as the horror films. I don't know why or how, but they
Horror,
are.
yeah, no, I can see that. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's Ryan Nemeth, Nick Nemeth.
Rick
That's
Nemeth.
Dolph Ziggler.
Yes.
He was on WWF for all those years, and then he
He was
left, and now he's like crushing it. Oh, cool.
Yeah, I did a podcast or something with him. We were on a podcast. There was a bunch of us. I don't remember which podcast it was, but he was like, he was hysterical. He's like, I can't even stand talking to you. I was like, oh my God, you're like crushing on me. And it's like, you're so famous and so gorgeous. And he goes, you invite me to Florida, I will come down anytime to launch up all night with you. So we got to reach out to Nick Nemeth again. And his name just
Yeah,
popped into my
that's
head.
awesome.
Yeah, but Nick Nemeth is the really famous one. The other one was given to you by that creepy lady.
Rhonda,
Real
this has been
creepy lady.
awesome, and I'm so happy that we got to connect. And
Sitting here.
do you have any
Thank you.
idea of
Sorry
what
about
movies like? Oh, don't worry about it. Do you know like the process of like picking the movies? I'm sure there's probably some that you can use that you don't have to pay anything for, right? I'm sure.
That's what we're going to try to do initially. We connected with a
Yeah.
lot of people, even at the convention, that are filmmakers that are going to let
Cool.
us. Then Richard Gabai, who did Party Nerds 1 and 2 and a couple of other films, he's an actor, producer, director. He's going to come on, be on the show, be on set with me. He's going to let us do Party Nerds, which is a fan favorite from back in the day. We keep
Cool.
connecting with young filmmakers. So that's exactly what we're trying to do. Even if we have to put together some shorts to do it, we will create. So we want to do a few things. We want to help young filmmakers that maybe are not haven't been able to get their stuff out there yet, help them, and then also by other people. Maybe there are products already on Netflix or something, but it also just helps promote it even that much more so. So
Yeah.
according to when I was on Joe Bob Briggs' show a few months back, his producer and director said it's a nightmare to get films. In the meantime, we haven't so far. I mean, of course, we're not into the hundreds of films yet. We're only, we're only going to do one film per show, as USA did
Yeah.
2 films. But we haven't had any problems yet. but maybe because it's a new world where all these young filmmakers are making these films on shoestring budgets, and and I think that way I can go back and delve into my past. Like I did a film called Prison a Go Go that's really a cute film, and I just told Gene today, I said we got to see if we can get the rights to air that, because a lot of people,
Yeah,
they've moved
yeah.
on, they don't care. It's not owned by anybody else right now, and so it's a little lag work for us in the beginning, but it's okay. So if
Yeah,
you hear
since
of anything
Up
in
All
your,
Night was done, there's a ton of Howling movies. There's more Howling movies that were made. I think they're on to like the 30th Amityville. So you have a lot
right.
of ones out there.
Yeah. So if you just seriously, if you hear anything, Doug, in your travels, or anyone, any young filmmakers or anybody that would like to either
Yeah,
be
no,
on
what
as
I'll
an
do is
actor,
yeah, I'll
please
put
reach
obviously
out.
your information, your book, everything into the episode notes so people can check it out and then
Okay.
on our website. But Rhonda, this has been really like you are beside it's you uh, Joe Bob Monster Vision, and then this guy that owned this video store where I grew up in South Plainfield, New Jersey, because he used to let me rent R-rated movies when I was like 10, like all the horror movies.
That's so
Are
funny.
just such a reason that again I was still a kid. It's like it's so funny. There's like, oh, you know a lot of movies and stuff, but I always played sports. I did all that stuff. Went out, but I just loved films, and it was such a cool thing for me and my buddy
You are
Tommy
not
for
alone.
those sleepovers.
If you heard all these people, what
I
what brought all
bet.
these people together for a convention is really funny, because I thought, well, it's just going to be nerds, right? Or I know my fan
Yeah,
base.
yeah.
There's so many different walks of life, and doctors and engineers and nerds and everything, and women. It is it's their hobby, their sport. It's just like people like fishing. This is their thing. They love the conventions. They grew up with the movies, and this is their release. And it's harmless, and it's so cool. And it makes me really want to do more of those, to reach out to fans, because it's a very special group of people that I got to meet. These two people a couple drove from Cincinnati. Wait, hand me those really quick. I'll hold them up. The last thing. These people, thank you. These people drove from Cincinnati and made this artwork. I don't know if you can see it. It's Up All Night
Oh, yeah, you
artwork,
can see that. That's
presented me with this
amazing.
original artwork of T-shirts, and then sent us the files so we could use them. The loveliest, sweetest couple that drove just to meet me. It was like it broke my heart. I mean, like it made me so happy, and I'm like, wow, that's such an honor. Like I don't take that
Yeah,
lightly, that someone would do that. I don't go, oh, just a fan. No, I don't, or just a weirdo. I no, like it's someone's life that they drove there. It's a big deal.
yeah, yeah.
I'm
That's
very humbled
awesome.
by that. And
That's awesome.
I'm
Well,
just
you
going to
deserve
continue to be.
everything.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you, honey. Well, you'll have to come visit
All
on our
right.
show too, as the movie as expert,
Yeah.
because
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
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 I
no.
mean
I
it.
know. I'm happy. I'm happy that you're that it's gonna come back. I think it's a like you said. I think it's such a perfect time because it gives people an opportunity, like the people that you're gonna give an opportunity to. People are watching it for you and your entertainment, and then at the same time, you have a movie.
Yes,
You know?
exactly. And then we'll make it informative. And of course, I'm going to put sexy girls on the set. I'm not going to try to be the girl that I was so many years ago, but I'm going to have my cute little sexy models and my hot little models and my hot guys. I'm going to do all of that as well. And it's going to be a really fun show. And I mean, it will have evolved with me, although there'll be some Rhonda isms, of course, and I'll be teaching
Yeah.
my young audience some things from the 90s, even though everyone thinks I was the 80s. I was on from 91 to 98. Same thing.
Uh,
Same thing. But
yeah. All
I
right,
thank you
Rhonda.
so
Thank you so
much.
much.